living history. A huge welcome for President Obama in Africa, and a family visit to what was once a place of no return. Family tragedy. They open their homes and hearts to children in need. Now the parents of 16 murdered as the family slept. Uphill battle. Lance Armstrong fighting hills, age, and accusations in the race for a comeback. And the invasion of ladybugs. If they're really good luck, this town has it made.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening, everyone. President Obama is at this hour flying back to the United States after a final stop on his overseas journey that was steeped in symbolism. In Ghana, where he was embraced as a son of Africa and welcomed amid an outpouring of emotion, the president spoke of a new moment of promise in Africa. And he challenged African leaders to end corruption and confront the scourges of war and disease. But the defining moment of the trip will be remembered both in Ghana and this country as a moment of poetic history in a place whose story is written in the blood of slaves. NBC Chief White House correspondent Chuck Todd is in Accra, the capital of Ghana. He begins our coverage.
The president spent less than 24 hours on Ghana soil, but the trip was not short on emotion. The highlight was the first family's visit to the Cape Coast Castle, one of the most infamous outposts of the Atlantic slave trade.
It reminds us that as bad as history can be, it's also possible to overcome.
Mr. Obama's roots, a son of a Kenyan goat herder, are well known. But this was also an important visit for First Lady Michelle Obama, whose oldest known relative, her great-great-grandfather, Jim Robinson, was a slave in South Carolina.
As Americans, and as African Americans, obviously, there's a special sense that, on the one hand, this place was a place of profound sadness. On the other hand, it is here where the journey of much of the African American experience began.
The Obama's visit to the Cape Coast attracted thousands. Overflowing crowds filled rooftops, peered out windows, hung off scaffolding, did anything to catch a glimpse of the American president, even running down the road chasing the motorcade. Normally wary of exposing their two daughters to TV cameras, the first couple made an exception.
It was particularly important for Malia and Sasha, who are growing up in such a blessed way, to be reminded that history can take very cruel turns.
The excitement surrounding the president's visit was evident in every corner of Accra.
The president hopes his African roots creates a connection that persuades African leaders to embrace his vision for the continent.
That vision was laid out in a lunchtime speech to the Ghanaian parliament.
We must start from the simple premise that Africa's future is up to Africans. But the true sign of success is not whether we are a source of perpetual aid that helps people scrape by. It's whether we are partners in building the capacity for transformational change.
Toward the end, he resurrected some familiar campaign rhetoric.
You can conquer disease and end conflicts and make change from the bottom up. You can do that. Yes, you can.
This speech was the last of 4 major international talks, including Prague, Cairo, Moscow, and here in Ghana, that together outline his foreign policy goals. Many Ghanaians begged the American president to stay longer.
Do something before you go.
As he left, the president, who struggled early in life to find a connection to his own father, talked about what this trip meant to him as a father.
I'll never forget the image of my 2 young daughters, the descendants of Africans and African Americans, walking through those doors of no return, but then walking back those doors of return.
During this overseas trip, the president found his domestic agenda coming under fire, and that may explain why he took a break in Italy to record his weekend address and focus it on a defense of his $787 billion stimulus package. Lester?
Chuck Todd, and NBC's Mara Schiavo-Campo is also in Ghana and tonight takes us inside that place that so deeply moved the first family.
We're in central Ghana, about 85 miles.
NBC News, Cape Coast, Ghana.
President Obama's visit to Ghana capped off a busy week that included a summit meeting in Russia and the G8 conference in Italy. And here to talk about what the president accomplished and what he hopes to accomplish back here at home, we're joined by John Harwood, chief Washington correspondent for CNBC. John, one of the issues that came up in the G8 is that there's often these promises of African aid and that it doesn't come through. Did we witness the start of a new level of American engagement with Africa today, or just a day of symbolism?
Well, Lester, I think anyone who saw the pride in the president's face when he stood before the Ghanaian parliament and said, "I have the blood of Africa in me," and saw him bear with a package, but then you're going to have a House-Senate division and a difficult negotiation. So I think Democrats remain on track for getting something done, but we don't know what that final package is going to be, and it's not going to be easy to get.
John Harwood, appreciate your insight. Thanks. And we turn now to the latest on a heartbreaking family tragedy in the Florida Panhandle, the murders of a couple whose compassion for children in need seemed to have no bounds. NBC's Peter Alexander on the family and the search for the couple's killers.
Authorities say it was a hateful and senseless act. The victims, Bird and Melanie Billings, were shot several times in the bedroom of their large rural home Thursday night. The Billings were well known and well liked in New York.
And as a footnote to that, Lester, so far no arrests have been made. The sheriff says that the persons of interest are said to be in their late teens or older, and that the third person of interest in this case is likely still in the area, and that neighbors there should remain alert. Finally tonight, it's important to add that the children are with family members.
All right, Peter, thank you for that. In Hattiesburg, Mississippi, thousands gathered for the funeral of NFL star Steve McNair. The 36-year-old former quarterback was shot last week by his 20-year-old girlfriend, who police say then killed herself. Mourners recalled McNair's toughness on the field, his generosity toward teammates, and his charity work. The investigation of the historic Burr Oak Cemetery in suburban Chicago continued today as hundreds of distraught families delivered information about their missing loved ones. The sheriff has declared all 150 acres of the historic cemetery, where 4 workers are charged with digging up bodies to resell grave sites, a crime scene. Burr Oak is closed until investigators determine the full scope of the crimes. At Cape Canaveral, lightning strikes forced NASA to scrub today's planned liftoff of the space shuttle Endeavour. Technicians say they haven't seen any lightning-related damage, but are still checking critical systems on the shuttle. The liftoff has been pushed back again until tomorrow. When NBC Nightly News continues this Saturday, an uphill climb for Lance Armstrong, fighting for a comeback, but facing some tough new challenges this year. And later, bugging out. The must-see invasion in Colorado tonight. Ladybugs taking over one town. Now to a comeback in American cycling. Lance Armstrong is in the pack at the Tour de France, one of the sports world's most grueling competitions. And so he's definitely still in the race, but even he is wondering if it will be possible to overcome age and a 3-year retirement to clinch a record 8th victory. Here's NBC's John Yang.
The Tour de France wound 110 miles through the Pyrenees Mountains today, a stretch where for 7 years Lance Armstrong dominated his rivals. But that was then. Today, Armstrong failed to gain ground, remaining in 3rd place, still 8 seconds behind leader Ronaldo Nocentini of Italy and 2 seconds behind Alberto Contador of Spain. Armstrong acknowledges this year is different.
I don't have the same confidence that I had before. That's normal, I think, and natural that after you've been away for 4 years, but I come with an extreme sense of excitement and also, quite honestly, a heck of a lot of nerves.
Commentators say just being among the leaders is a singular achievement.
No one's ever done what he's doing right now. No one's ever come back like this at such an age and been so strong and forceful in the race.
2 months shy of his 38th birthday, Armstrong would be the oldest Tour de France winner in history. He only ended his 3-year retirement last September. Not a lot of time to get into peak condition for the grueling 3-week, 2,200-mile race. Armstrong's already beaten the odds, winning the Tour de France a record 7 straight times after a painful battle with testicular cancer that spread to his lungs, abdomen, and brain. He also developed a controversial reputation.
The critics say I'm arrogant, a doper,
which he addresses head-on in an ad for one of his sponsors, dedicating the race to fellow cancer survivors.
They can say whatever they want. I'm not back on my bike for them.
Armstrong's return has meant the return of excitement and global interest in the race. Every day, he's mobbed by reporters.
Our rock star is back, and there's just such a crush for everything Lance right now that it's made this tour very interesting.
He's even winning over French racing fans, a group long skeptical of him.
Armstrong is a great champion, the best of the world.
I think he's very courageous to come back.
Lance Armstrong.
Already a winner to many, no matter what the outcome. John Yang, NBC News, London.
A packed running of the Bulls in Pamplona, Spain today left 5 more people, including a 48-year-old American with minor injuries. Yesterday marked the first fatality in 14 years when a Spanish man was gored to death by a bull that had broken away from the pack. 15 people have died in the race since record-keeping for the festival began in 1924. When we come back, the state of emergency in California tonight broke and handing out IOUs. How long can it last? The budget crisis in California, a state with the world's 8th largest economy, is deepening because lawmakers can't agree on a way to close a $26 billion deficit. The state has been issuing IOUs, but most banks say they won't honor them. NBC's George Lewis tells us what residents can expect next.
Still butting heads over the budget, Republican Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger met today with the Democrats who run the California legislature as they tried to end the stalemate. George Lewis, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Up next here tonight, they call it Lady Luck, but this is ridiculous.
Sunday, Senator John McCain on the economy, healthcare, and Sarah Palin, plus Senator Chuck Schumer. 2 exclusives, only on Meet the Press. Nightly news at nightly.msnbc.com.
Finally, it's been said that ladybugs are lucky. Well, luck is definitely in the air in Colorado this summer. Swarms of ladybugs have invaded parts of the state following an extra wet spring. Chris Vanderveen of NBC affiliate KUSA got a look at this year's extraordinary population explosion.
Lots of privacy.
Can you believe that? Amazing. That's NBC Nightly News for this Saturday. I'm Lester Holt reporting from New York. I'll see you tomorrow morning on Today, then right back here tomorrow evening. Good night, everyone.